IVM.
Hey everybody, welcome to another week on the IVM Podcast Network. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Paytm Money Upfront. We're still in lockdown and we're trying our best to make our releases work, but we are occasionally getting a little late or slipping on some episodes. Hope that you guys continue to remain patient with us. Check out our social media accounts. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We're doing something over there called the IVM Smart Guide. A bunch of our hosts are talking about things to do during the lockdown, books, movies, podcasts, etc. Check it out. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. And let's get you onto your show right now.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Uncle Please Sit. My name is Tushar Abhichandani and with me is
Joel Pereira, your co-host and trusty companion in this quest to debunk uncle myths.
I'm just waiting for you to suddenly go into one of those Hindi shows. मैं हूँ आपका host और दोस्त Joel Pereira.
Listen, it's not coincidental that host and dost rhyme. I'm sure there's a story here, Tushar. We must find out what it is.
Yeah. Now all you need is like a shiny suit and be like, have one of those sad stories about life.
But how
मैं 15 किलोमीटर चल के जाता था school.
And swam a river and all. But now how I've managed to succeed.
Yeah.
And thank you, dosto.
And all the aunties in the neighborhood love me.
and give me thepla.
That's the life, buddy. That's the life. So how's it going, Joel?
Dude, I am, as we established last week, in the midst of, we are not even in the same city, the two of us, as we know, but or the same state. And I am actually having a good time. I'm at a relative's place, and she has a very well equipped kitchen. And a couple of days ago, so I cook a little bit, right? And a couple of days ago, we were like, what should we have for lunch? And we're like, let's have pasta. And then I was like, oh, you know what, guys? Let's make it from scratch because we have flour and we have eggs and we have time. We have lots of time.
Of course.
So yeah.
But have you put anything up on Instagram?
No, man. You know me. I'm in Instagram.
Instagram or nobody believes.
I mean, Tushar, I sent you the pictures.
It's okay. But it wasn't on Instagram. It wasn't on Instagram, so I refuse to believe it.
If it wasn't on Instagram, it didn't happen.
Because as we are all aware, WhatsApp is all about fake news.
Yeah, but actually that's true. Fake news hasn't infested Instagram as badly as WhatsApp, no?
Yeah, because I mean, it's because it's so hard to go viral on Instagram, no? As we are experiencing with our own podcast.
That's true. Yeah. I think unless we say something needlessly provocative, or we advertise this completely differently because so all the trolls think we are on their side and they promote us.
We should actually make both sides think that we're on their side.
Yeah, leading to rude surprises later on.
Just piss everyone off and make everyone think that they're on our side.
But the thing, I would imagine the trolls don't listen to podcasts, or do they? I would think not.
I mean, they're too busy sharing stuff on WhatsApp.
Sharing stuff about how like people from one community are licking vegetables to spread coronavirus and stuff.
Yeah. All sorts of lovely examples being spread on WhatsApp because clearly, you'd assume that a global pandemic would make people think twice before putting out shit, but no, that does not happen.
No, you know what? So here's the thing, okay, though, to be fair to trolls.
Wow.
I never thought I would say that.
What was that said?
But yeah. So I'm on my family WhatsApp group, right? And my family, unlike a lot of Indian families, is relatively progressive and, non-trolly, non-sangi, non-whatever. And, but yet there are, at least twice or thrice a day, I'm like, Aunt so-and-so, this is fake news.
Yeah.
Or Uncle so-and-so, this is fake news.
Oh, dude,
guys, why don't you? Yeah, like someone, like my aunt, I think yesterday on the family WhatsApp group, she sent some nonsense about how you should crush garlic with lemon, and because garlic is acidic and some nonsense. And I'm like, first of all, the forward that you sent, they've spent corona as coronary. So
I think that should be a clue. That should
that
be a
should be your
clue.
first. That should be your first clue. Like three times, okay?
Also, my favorite
Yeah,
part
I'm
about
not.
all of these forwards is that all the solutions. मतलब हाँ WHO को तो ये सूझा ही नहीं क्या अरे गार्लिक डालते हैं सब ठीक हो जाएगा.
Huh. Huh. Just have garlic and
Yeah,
lemon because garlic is acidic
yeah, yeah.
and it has a pH value of 5. Okay. And I'm like, 1 second. The pH, the neutral pH is 7. The pH cycle start, the pH scale starts at 0. And I had to school them a little bit, and then they're like, oh, thank you for verifying this news for us.
Nice.
And I'm like, guys, the same thing, the same device you used to send this crap to,
Yeah,
you can do this yourself.
exactly.
And
Oh, fuck,
and
and I
this
was
is a
also thinking, Joel, if
what?
if garlic was the solution to this, the Jain community would be dude.
Oh yeah, damn.
It's like the whole
The
world
Jain, no,
deals with corona, but they're
yeah. Oh, yeah. For the Jain community, garlic is like what vampire is to garlics, no?
I wonder then what forwards are going on there. Like in various communities where you have these food
Yeah.
restrictions. Every community has those. Like what kind of
Huh.
sanitized forwards are going there?
I wonder, no?
That
How
would
do
be
you break
interesting.
into the?
Yeah,
There must be a way to break into these WhatsApp groups.
yeah, no. Well, that should be our next
Yeah.
project.
No, no. But it's like the world is a very strange place
Yeah.
right now, man.
Also,
I
wait,
would
before
not have
before we go
imagined.
ahead, again, we would like to tell you guys since we are recording this remotely, the quality is obviously not going to be studio quality. You will hear strange sounds. Just assume those are good strange sounds and not bad strange sounds. And yes,
No, and also for those of you, the few of you listening, please realize that because we are recording this in off our laptops on like Bluetooth headsets, we have had to actually turn off the ACs and fans in our homes
yeah.
so that it doesn't pick up all that white noise. And we are literally in the tropics, and it's very hot. But these are
This is our
sacrifices.
workout, guys. This is our workout.
These are sacrifices that one must make to get uncles to sit.
Yeah, so that you can tell them to do that.
So that you can tell them to sit. So yeah, like you. So yesterday I was. So I'm in this compound. I'm in Hyderabad actually right
Hmm.
now, and I was in my compound yesterday, and there were these uncles. They're always uncles, right? You
Everywhere.
know the wearing the uncle fitness kit, which
Yeah,
is the tight polo neck shirt and the shorts and
yeah,
the white sock, the not ankle length socks, huh? These were like long socks up
yeah.
to the calves, and running shoes and walking.
Hmm.
Okay, so they were like, so I was standing at my gate just getting some sunlight, and these guys talking about how they should prevent people from coming into the complex. But how do we decide what are essential people and who are not essential people? And then they were standing there and talking, and I was eavesdropping, and I was just thinking to myself, and these are so my where I am, it's a relatively prosperous area, and all the people who live here are also relatively prosperous, who and they're all sitting at home and doing nothing, okay, because none of them, I think, has provides anything really essential to the community. And the people who are actually like who they're looking to stop at on the streets or whatever, delivery people, health workers, like sanitation people who had come in the other day, they were being all weird with them. They were like, no, there's no need to come in and spray these things, our colony is clean, and so on and so forth. And I was just like, I don't know these people, so I couldn't be all like, uncle, please sit over there.
Hmm.
But I really felt like it. I really wanted to.
No, I
But I'm
can
like, oh,
imagine. Yeah, because
I don't.
it's the ultimate irony, like all these people who you depend on, you're discriminating them. I
Yeah,
mean, it's like the doctor thing that was happening, right? Recently, a lot of doctors, especially, I think I remember there was a case in Ames and a couple of other places
yeah,
that I was reading about,
yeah,
where
yeah, yeah,
doctors were told to vacate their rooms and stuff because they could come and infect you. I'm like, buddy, if you get an
yeah,
infection, who the hell are you going to go to? It's going to be that doctor.
yeah. Exactly, right. I know there were so many cases. There was one video that went viral also from Gujarat, I believe,
Yeah, yeah,
where
yeah.
this irate man, I think it was the doctor in Surat, the lady doctor, and he was like banging on her door and yelling at her and
Yeah.
like, to leave and stuff. I mean, I don't understand Gujarati, but it seemed like he was really upset.
Yeah, he was apparently upset because she was coming there, or she something about the dog. But it seemed like the dog was a flimsy excuse.
Because no, I saw the tweets and the explanations, etc., that followed,
Uh,
and it was always about the fact that she's a medico, and
yeah,
because she spends time in the hospital and so on and so forth.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
that's essentially what brings us to today's topic, right?
yeah, that is what brings us to today. I love that smooth segue,
That were very smoothly
Tushar.
done,
Good
very
job.
smoothly. Yes,
Good,
always,
good job.
always.
Good job. So, what is today's topic?
Our topic today is meritocracy,
Oh, one more of the buzzwords, no?
the buzzword.
I love it.
Favorite middle class word,
It's
by the way.
Yeah, it's meritocracy. Everyone, this is the ideal situation, the
Yeah, the
meritocracy.
meritocracy.
But we'll be talking about this right after the break, right?
Yes. So
Oh, okay.
see you on the other side, guys.
Are you looking for India's most awesome cricket podcast? Are you now tired of listening to the same old guys drone on about cricket everywhere? Edges and Sledges is a weekly cricket podcast hosted by three fans of the game, Varun, DJ, and myself, Ashwin. It was established in early 2018, has over 60 episodes now, and is of course now proud to be on the IVM Podcast Network. Each week, we get together from three different time zones, the USA, the UK, and Singapore, and we talk about things from the world of cricket, with a focus on Indian cricket. We often interview special guests from all around the world, including former cricketers and cricket media personalities. So check out Edges and Sledges, the cricket podcast, now on the IVM network.
And welcome back. We were just telling you how we're going to be talking about meritocracy today.
Yeah, on today's very special episode of Uncle Please Sit, Tushar and I are going to be discussing the meritocracy.
Buddy, every episode is a special episode.
Every episode is special episode. That is true. No, but 1 second. Last week's episode and this week's episode were just little more special.
That is
little more.
That is true. We are doing it remotely and sweating.
Remotely and sweating.
There is lots of sweating going on.
Not in some cool studio. You know the thing when we record in the studio. I mean, everyone who's listening to this podcast surely is following IVM social media streams, and you see those pictures from the studio, those guys and those shields in front of the mic, and the engineer in the corner with his two screens and all those graphs and cool like audio software and all. And that experience is special, right? I mean, I am sitting in my bedroom over here in front of my laptop and wondering if the sound quality is good enough and everything. And just I miss that.
It feels like we're doing a college project right now. We're not doing something professional or serious.
Exactly, right? Because we'd be sitting there sipping on coffee and making sure that the sound levels were good and someone would do a clap and everything.
We'll have people doing a lot of these things for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So enough chit chat now. Let's get to the topic, buddy. Let's get to the topic. Let's talk about
so the meritocracy.
Yeah.
Basically, okay, if you want to define it, it's basically a system where the intelligent, the talented, the capable, and the hardworking are rewarded. Okay. Without any consideration to their background, past, economic status, anything, any of that kind sort. Okay. It's a lovely idea, right? It's because who likes nepotism? Yeah. Even if even if you are the product of nepotism, you'd be like, no, nepotism is bad.
It's like all ideas that we discuss, which seem great on the surface, but as you scratch the surface, they turn out to be complete garbage ideas.
Yeah. And the meritocracy is one such thing, because a couple of episodes ago, how long ago was it? I think 3 weeks ago, we did the episode on reservation.
That was episode 3. That was, I think, 3 weeks.
Episode 3, yeah. Episode 3. And, this episode, I would imagine, is a corollary to that.
Yeah.
Because the argument that the primary argument against reservation, not just here in India, but anywhere around the world, like, in the US, where you have affirmative action programs in places of employment or universities, etc. Same thing in Europe. And the primary argument against it is always merit. But what about merit?
Yeah,
right? What about merit? Implying that the people who have benefited from those affirmative action programs or those reservations, etc., are not meritorious enough to be there if not for the reservation,
Joel,
right?
shockingly, this argument comes from people who are in the upper caste and upper class bracket. I never thought this would be happening.
Shocking,
Shocking, no?
shocking,
How
absolutely
can
shocking.
they of all people, say this? My God, I never thought they would.
Yeah, like even in the US and in the UK, it's always the white Anglo-Saxon in the US and like the white men in it's mostly white men who are who have this opinion about
Yeah,
affirmative action, and in India it's upper caste,
upper
upper
caste, upper
class
class
people,
men. Yeah.
upper
So
caste, upper class. No,
let's go by step by step. So what does the word meritocracy mean? Where does it come from? What's the whole thing about?
okay, so here's in the process of preparing for this podcast, right? I was just a small like informal poll among the people I know, all on WhatsApp now because social distancing.
Yeah.
And I asked them like, so what are your thoughts on the meritocracy? What do you think it means, right?
Hmm.
And almost to a man, they all were like, meritocracy isn't that a combination or a portmanteau of the words merit plus democracy? And that's what we've all been led to believe, because even I thought that for a bit.
But
And yeah, but and there's a twist also to the
yeah,
story. So in the UK, in the 1940s, there was this guy named Michael Young who was a sociologist.
yeah,
And post-war Britain was a very terrible place, obviously, because they'd won the war, but it came at a massive cost.
very
The
easy.
empire was gone. Like we had our tryst with destiny, etc. So the empire was gone. And yeah, like you said, Garibi max in the
Yeah,
UK, and
social state.
Labour was in Labour was in power at that time, and they're like, we need to change our society from the ground up.
Hmm.
And there was this guy, Michael Young, who used to work for the Labour Party at the time, who was also an academic,
Huh.
and he came up with this concept of the welfare state, right, in post-war UK,
Hmm.
where the NHS. He created the National Health Service, as in he made health service socialized and free, made public education free, improves the lives of the labor, and he was the guy who
Coined this thing.
ironically no he so here's the thing, so he created a system, because see, Britain was as bad or if not worse in India or a lot of other countries, because they didn't have a caste, but they have class,
Yeah,
right? In England you have
and
the
very
nobility
stringent,
and the
very
working class.
firm.
Yeah, and the working class, and and so on and so forth. And their society was as stratified as anyone else's, because if you were working class, there was probably no chance for you to get an education or to move up, like and to
And the
maybe
same thing
work with
applied to
your.
marriage. The same thing applied to jobs. The same thing applied to any sort of opportunity that came along.
Exactly, exactly. So he created a system that was sort of like a proto meritocracy.
Yeah.
But he himself realized the pitfalls of the word, because he had a very keen understanding of human nature, right?
Hmm.
And sometime later, he wrote this book called The Rise of the Meritocracy, where the word meritocracy actually means merit plus aristocracy. So he wrote a book much later in his career
Hmm.
where it was a parody of what he himself, on some level, had created, where he foresaw that if you even after you replace the class system,
Hmm.
you will still, I mean, the established class system in the UK, which was the nobility, right?
Huh.
The barons and
The
the serfs
aristocrats.
and the knights and the dames, the aristocrats. You will have a new class, which combines merit plus aristocracy, and he coined the term meritocracy,
Hmm.
and it was meant to be a parody of what the ideal was.
Yeah.
But like a lot of things, like a lot of things, we completely forget the origins of words, right, when we use them.
Yeah. So then the parody
So
becomes the reality,
the parody becomes a reality, yeah.
not like religion.
And
Not mentioning any particular religion, so please, nobody file case against me, please.
nobody file case, yeah,
No
please don't,
mention,
yeah, not
no
now.
religion mentioned. Just generic religion observation.
Yeah, and not now, not when we are like all locked down and
Yeah,
wondering whether we have enough
yeah, seriously.
atta.
I don't want to get like COVID in jail, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Okay. I was gonna say something horrible
No,
about
no.
getting stuff in
Moving
jail,
on, back to
but
meritocracy. Meritocracy.
yeah. But this is neither the time nor the place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So So in India, we have our own class, we have our own system, right, of social
Yeah. We
stratification. We
actually have a
have
double system.
we have a double
We
system.
actually have a
We
triple.
have the
No, we have a triple system. Actually, I can think of four layers. There's caste, class,
huh,
there is
huh,
region, there
huh.
is language, and of course there is the gender thing also, which is actually universal, which happens everywhere, not just here.
Gender is universal. Yeah,
Yeah,
gender is
the
universal. Hey,
gender.
listen, please don't make us in look in a bad light.
Yeah, no, the gender problem is universal. Like,
Yeah, and everyone has gender issues.
yeah,
But yeah, the caste, class, and yeah, regionalism plus language thing is true for us.
yeah,
And the people, there are these, when people are singing praises to meritocracy, there are always these buzzwords that people use. And my favorite one is the concept of the quote unquote level playing field.
level playing field. That's so funny.
Okay, yeah, and if you, so the origins of this word also, this phrase also are interesting. Basically, so if you're playing soccer,
Hmm.
right, and if the field is sloped, obviously one side has greater advantage than the other.
Hmm.
Right. So if to for both sides, for it to be fair to both sides, the field needs to be level.
Level, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's the root to that. That's the root, the etymology of that phrase,
Hmm.
level playing field. But it's actually absolutely nonsense, yeah, because no field is level. There is no field.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, no, there is a, there is a field, Joel, but the field has never been level. Your success is so often, especially in this country, like we mentioned, is defined by your class, caste, gender, region, language. In general, these things come to define a large part of what we do. The career we choose, the jobs that we get, the education that we get, is in large part
Yeah.
defined by these things. Like, look at us.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
are in the media. Um,
Yeah.
our initial jobs were not exactly high paying jobs. They were
Yeah.
fairly low paying jobs. Some of them were even free sometimes. Some of the internships were free.
Yeah.
Like, nobody was whining on Twitter back then about free internships because there was no Twitter, sadly. Because
Yeah.
we've
What is
also
that?
done
Pay
a
your
lot of free
interns.
work. Lots of free work we did. But the thing
Lots
is,
of free work we
we
did.
could do that because we came from well to do families or decently, whatever, upper middle class families or whatever you want to call them. And
Yeah.
these families, because of the support that we had, we could afford to spend like half a year or a year working on these things without actually getting any money. Because had it
Yeah.
been someone
Because there was
else,
no pressure, right? There
and
was
this,
no pressure.
and you notice this a lot in the English media, especially, where
Hmm.
I mean, actually, all media, not just English media, all media,
Yeah. Yeah.
where, and I'm sure across industries as well. Um,
Correct.
this whole system of low paying internships or internships that don't pay or traineeship jobs that low pay or don't pay at all
Hmm.
essentially cuts out a whole section of society that can't afford to work for free,
Yeah.
because of which there is obviously not a level playing field because you've essentially barred people from that field already because of the
Yeah, because
limitations that you've put.
your entry ticket to that internship or that fellowship or whatever is your ability, as in your family's ability to take care of you while you labor for free,
Yeah, and of
right?
course
So
these are
obviously,
professions we're talking about. These are white collar professions. There are other kinds of
yeah.
professions where even regionalism and caste comes in.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, but this is so before I want to break these down like one by one, right?
Hmm.
Your I think for all of us, our introduction to the word meritocracy or merit or whatever begins when we were in school and or college,
Huh.
especially when it's time to either do an entrance exam or do a college admission,
Yeah,
right? Because
yeah,
in India, I think aside from really top end like post grad colleges, etc., the benchmark for getting admission into a college is just your marks,
yeah.
right? You
That's true.
either
That's true.
you do an entry exam, of any kind, like
No, but
even
you
like for
also
an
have a group discussion and a personal interview in the good colleges at least. In the others,
huh,
you don't. Yeah, obviously.
huh, huh,
But
huh.
we will
No,
also
but
talk about how even those group discussions and PIs are a problem.
Oh yeah. No, I'm saying like at the very basic level, it's the entrance exam, right?
Yeah.
It's the like for colleges and universities, etc., or like engineering places or the engineering, at least at the grad level,
Yeah.
there is an entrance exam and you do it, and yeah, on the surface it seems like yes, this is best because everyone is doing the same exam, everyone getting the same amount of time, everyone's answering the same questions, and everyone's being graded anonymously or whatever, and the marks could be for anyone.
Hmm.
So far so good,
Yeah.
right? um,
But
but
as
then
always,
you,
scratch deeper.
yeah, scratch one, not even very, like just like run your nail gently over the
Yeah.
skin. You don't even have to like use like any like like a needle or anything. Just have to like literally scratch the surface, and then
Uh,
you realize that the circumstances
are
to
very
getting
different.
to that level, yeah, yeah, yeah. And these are things that obviously we don't realize when we were younger, but there are so many things. Yeah, like for instance, my like at home in my family home, there was my this lady who works for us who comes and cleans, etc. Her daughter was trying to get into a very premium science. She wanted to do, I think, computer science or something like that.
Hmm.
So I think that was a separate entrance exam, or there was another entrance exam, or whatever. And that's when I realized the resources required to be successful at these things. Because this girl, like her mother, was working in our house full time, and also we were helping out with like paying for the girls,
Yeah.
because there were coaching classes, there were textbooks, there were 21 some like sets of question sets, and so on and so forth. And then on top of that, the stuff that you don't see, right? It's the encouragement of being able to, the ability to just sit and do this, to concentrate on study, to concentrate on that
Yeah, and
entrance
not worry
exam.
about your next meal or, if you're going to have a house or not.
Yeah, yeah. Or no, even if the situation is the most benign, okay, even if the situation is benign, like just imagine, like in this country, very few of us percentage wise live in apartments or houses or whatever. Most people are living shared accommodation, right, where
Hmm.
you'd have maybe sometimes three generations
Living in
of
the same
of
house. Yeah.
that family living in the same house, or living in sometimes like in cities like Bombay especially, living in the same room.
True.
you know
True.
Obviously if you're living in that situation, you're not privileged. And then when you go and do your entrance exam, there is no indication of the amount you've struggled, right, to get there.
Exactly.
Yeah, because like I sit and see, even like even um, UPSC exams, okay, like the UPSC exam, the civil services exam. And I know so many of my friends, right, in who would just study and for like 17 hours a day and 18 hours a day and so on and so forth. And the reason they could do that was because there was someone who was paying the bills, no?
Exactly. I
And
actually
these
know
are,
of people who prepared for some of these entrance exams literally on a budget of like 80 to 100 rupees a day. That is all they could
huh,
afford. So they literally had to eat terrible food, had to maybe
huh,
stay in places that most of us would never want to stay in, and
hmm,
push for this. And some of them made
hmm,
it, but
hmm,
it was so much harder for them.
yeah. No, and hence then you can justify the reservation, right? For people from like those, from people from the SC ST community, or the OBC
Yeah.
community, or
No, and
backward
it
classes,
also
and so on
doesn't
and so
tell
forth.
you about how much, like, even with the reservation, especially in professional courses like a medicine or
Hmm,
an engineering or a CA, uh,
hmm,
because as you mentioned, you need tuitions, you need coaching classes, you need all sorts of things, which is why
hmm.
even with reservation, representation is still so much lower.
Yeah,
Because again,
yeah,
for them, the playing field is so unlevel that even with
yeah,
time, even with help, it's still difficult. So you can
yeah.
imagine what it is.
Yeah, because see, then the step two to this process is, then the step two to this point is, but I worked hard too.
Yeah,
Okay, like you ask someone, and yeah, you did,
no
because
one's
cracking
denying
an
that.
IIT
No
exam,
one's denying that.
yeah, cracking an IIT entrance exam, or like one of these premier like at the UPSC or whatever, is damn difficult, and no one is denying that, but at the same time, some time ago, right? I was working on a project,
Hmm.
and it was in Delhi. Okay, I was working on this project in Delhi,
Hmm.
and we were doing a series of interviews with people who were quote unquote like achievers or stalwarts in their field, or people who've like done cool things basically. So
Hmm.
a lot of there's some fashion designers, musicians, and artists, and so on and so forth. And I was conducting the interviews, and I was listening to them talk, and I realized one thing, that we were asking questions about background, childhood, and so on and so forth. And I realized the number of these people, these
Hmm.
are adults, like full grown people, like who are accomplished individuals in their own field,
Hmm.
come from a background of, they would just be like, oh, my father was a bureaucrat, or my father was in the services, or my dad was in the banking system, or my dad was doing this, or my dad was doing that. And then you realize, mostly like and since this was Delhi, so mostly the bureaucracy or defense,
Yeah.
right? And then you realize that you just look under, like, look at the bio of the elites in our country at least,
Hmm.
and you'll see all of them have the same background, or very similar backgrounds, in the sense they've all gone to the same educational institutions, they've all gone to the same bunch of schools and colleges, and then that cycle just, like,
It
then
continues,
you
and
go
this
to the
is
best
obviously
schools.
this is not to begrudge anyone what they get, but the point of the fact of the matter is that if your dad went to a good college, if your mom went to a good college, if your family went to good colleges, if you have better connections, if you have more money, you will have access. Your obviously background matters. Background makes such a huge
Yeah.
difference. So at no
Yes,
point
Tushar,
does
high five.
high five from Wi-Fi, buddy, Wi-Fi.
Good. Uncle, please sit.
Your background matters. It makes such a huge difference
Yeah.
because if
But everyone denies that, right?
everyone
You're like,
likes to
oh no,
deny
I
that,
work
and
very
I'm telling
hard.
you, even on a basic, chal, forget people who get into like a Harvard or an IIT or whatever. Even on a
Huh.
basic level, people who are doing okay, who went to an okayish college and who are
Huh.
earning decent, good money now, comfortable lives. Even there,
Huh.
they the amount of effort and the amount of access required for them was so much lower than it is for
Yeah.
someone who would from an underprivileged background who would then eventually make it to their same position. It
Yep.
would be
Yep.
so much harder to do that because without a background, without, I mean, just the fact that we have parents who went to colleges helped us know that, okay, these are the professions that are available to us. This is how we can
Hmm.
apply to them. This is how we can get
Yeah.
into these colleges. And, the work experience that our parents had also taught us that, okay, when you go into an office, this can happen, that can
Hmm.
happen. This is how you deal with colleagues. This is how you don't deal with. This is an option that is not available to people whose parents have not done a white collar job.
Yeah. Or whose parents are unaware of the fact that their offspring can even dare to dream of having these kind of
Yeah,
jobs.
because
Like,
it's a
when
vicious
we were
cycle,
kids,
right? It's a
right?
vicious cycle. It
Yeah.
keeps putting you in that same space again and again because at no point do you see that light which sort of helps you move forward to the next level.
Yeah, yeah. Because like when we were kids, man, a lot of us, when we, we were encouraged, at least I was, and most of us are, to dream, like, right? What do you want to do when you grow up? And you would say something dumb like astronaut or something, and no one would laugh in your
Yeah,
face, or they would be like, ah, okay. It's like, because when you have some amount of wealth, or when you have some amount of access, then success is not that daunting, right?
it isn't. Like, for example, I'll give you my example. Towards my last 4 years of schooling, from about
Huh.
6 years of schooling, from say eighth grade to 12th grade, were primarily in this place called Jamnagar, which is in the middle of nowhere in Gujarat.
Huh.
Now, the thing
Hmm.
is, I could see that there were a lot of kids there who were, again, I lived in a township uh, of
Hmm.
that company, but the city
Hmm.
was about 20 miles away, 15 miles away, I
Hmm.
guess. Sorry, 30 kilometers. Why am I
Hmm.
saying miles? Uh,
Yeah.
was,
What the hell?
yeah, what the hell? So, like, I knew people from there, and even there, I could see the difference because, in that township, I had access to better internet. I had access to more things, and I was also surrounded by
Yeah.
professionals because everyone there was an engineer or a doctor or something like that.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
even within that 30-kilometer gap in the same region
Hmm.
in the middle of nowhere, I had more access to information and I had more access to understanding what was available in the future. Although, yes, it was
Hmm.
much lower than what it would be for a kid from Bombay or a kid from Delhi, because obviously,
Hmm.
I mean, it matters where you live. It does make it, and of course, that's
Yeah.
also part of
Yeah.
privilege. Where you live also makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
But just the fact that I had access to those things made such a huge difference, because I know a lot of those people, what they're doing now and what I'm doing now, and I'm not to be like boastful or whatever,
Hmm.
is very different. I mean, a lot of them never sort of got out of that shell that
Yeah.
they were restricted to, unfortunately, even though they
Yeah.
could have. A
No,
lot of them very smart.
but you know what? You know what though? There is I believe that there is a willful tone deafness that operates over here also, right? Because if you come from a higher from the higher upper classes or the upper caste, etc., and you're a big believer in meritocracy, I guess that's the only thing you can do, because otherwise it's acknowledging that you had an unfair advantage, right?
Yeah, yeah, obviously, and nobody wants to say that my struggle
Nobody wants to say
was
that.
not as hardcore as your
My,
struggle.
yeah,
And
exactly, right? Because
the interesting thing in this whole background situation
hmm,
is that every once in a while you will see a
hmm,
situation where someone, this poor rickshaw wala's son will crack an IIT, or
ha,
an Anganwadi worker's son will crack like AIMS exam or something like that, and then
ha,
the shady thing that people do after that is they will
ha,
publicize it, and then they will say, and then of course they will publicize so that they can use it later to say that, "Arey,
hmm,
dekho, these people, despite their circumstances, could make it. Why can't the other people make
hmm,
it? They are only lazy. If you
yeah,
make enough effort, you make it." It's like
yeah,
the ideal minority scenario where you use a minority or an underprivileged person against other underprivileged people.
hmm.
Where you basically
No,
tell,
I
देखो
think
तुम
that,
भी करके दिखाओ. You also do this. You should also work hard and do this. Completely
and the
oblivious of
system
everything else that's happening.
and the system is scared to allow that small trickle
Yeah.
of people into the upper, like the upper realms, just so that the hope is palpable.
See, buddy, since we are
I
talking
really
a lot,
believe that.
it is like the cooker का सीटी थोड़ा खुलता है तो pressure कम हो जाता है.
Correct.
So it's that.
Yeah, because otherwise, I mean, man, we've all applied for those, like, those fellowships and scholarships and internships and, so on and so forth. And yeah, the first, you write your essay and you write your like statement of purpose and things like that. But what you're really doing is literally like digging through your social networks to find out if there is some person of influence, some uncle's friend, some like, like some cousin's cousin who is a person of influence in that place
Yeah,
that you're
yeah, I
applying
need
to or that you
recommendation
want.
letters. Yeah, recommendation letters. What else is that if not using your privilege to get someone to get you a
Uh,
better position?
yeah, exactly, right? Because if you come from a background, if you come from a background where a higher education or the aspiration to work a white collar job is something that you are not familiar with,
Yeah.
you don't obviously have people in your network who are going to write you a recommendation to a scholarship or a fellowship or whatever.
And also,
It's just not going to happen.
and also this whole recommendation situation. For example, you go to a college, somehow you do
Hmm.
manage to do well, but of course, and also it matters in terms of your social interactions as well, right? Someone coming from a poorer background.
Yeah, this is basically cycling back to the marks as the entry point for. No, you were talking about group discussions and
Yeah,
so on
yeah.
and so
So
forth, right?
I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about like even shall once someone's made it to the college despite
Huh,
privilege, someone's made it there.
huh, huh, huh.
There is also that social angle, right? He or she or they will not have the same pop culture references. They will not have the same life references, which is why a lot of
Yeah.
them will end up entering their own shell, because all the other people in
Hmm.
their class, who, the so-called elite or whatever, are
Yeah.
obviously not going to interact with them socially. So you will again
Yeah.
end up in that situation where someone's made it, but then now another hurdle has popped up where there is also the hurdle of making through this course, but also the hurdle of networking, which will be very difficult for this person.
Yeah. No, because like I want to bring that point up again because but when you said, about a group discussion or an interview, a personal interview, when you get admission, especially into elite colleges or elite universities, or even that job that you really want, you
Yeah,
might have the degree, you might have the marks or whatever, but if you come from a background where your English is accented, and it's always in English, huh? Let's
yeah,
not
yeah,
fool
yeah.
anyone.
Let's be honest. Yeah.
It's always English. If your English is accented, or if your idioms are out of date, or if you're if you don't if obviously now if you're in a situation where going to speak in an alien language, you are going to be nervous and insecure about it,
Yeah, yeah.
and you're not going to perform as well at that interview as someone for whom English is a native language.
And not just English. And of
Where's
course, in
your
India, a lot of the group discussion, the personal interviews are often not like subject matter related. They are often about random things because they want to gauge your inside quotes personality. So
huh?
they will ask you things like, oh, what the newspapers you read and what books you have read and this and that.
Hmm.
Obviously, in that situation, your that person is going to be at a disadvantage.
Yeah, because it's literally like an alien language, right?
Yeah,
It's nothing. And this is not something that having a meritocracy can solve.
yeah.
Like even if you wanted to have a pure meritocracy, how are you going to step
See,
across this hurdle?
it's like the libertarian argument. No, free markets. Keep free markets. People will sort it out themselves. No, if you keep free markets, eventually there will be monopolies, and these monopolies will rule everything, which is exactly
So
what
yeah,
happened
because see
even in
again,
now.
I'm not even saying that's actually an interesting thing that you brought up, because one big part of this meritocracy thing is this, and talking about social networks, and you're talking about so on and so forth. It is natural for people to, once they've managed, like in India, right? If you're talking about in India, there was a time when the highest class of people was the nobility. we
Yeah,
had we had like I think 570 or something odd princely states, and people who came from those families, the royal families or the noble families, were at the upper echelons of class and whatever, and they had all the opportunities.
yeah,
And then we had the civil services and some of the stuff. The nobility receded obviously, and with thanks to examinations and whatever, there was cracks in the class system
yeah,
wherein people could break into it. And a lot of people did break into it, people who might have been from a lower class structure or whatever.
yeah.
And then, but basically what they did was they broke into it, and then they kicked the ladder from
Yeah, yeah,
behind them,
pretty much. And also, even
right?
with the new nobility, it's like the nobility stayed. It was just more people came in.
Yeah. No, because I'm saying that's a natural state of being only, yeah.
Yeah, this is how,
Because
yeah. Which is why the merit argument never holds because you always do this. You always take these positions and hang on to them for yourselves.
and it's not even about family, okay? It's like now, I have been, in my career, I have worked at places like as hyper local as a place like AIB,
Hmm.
all the way up to the BBC. I
Yeah.
worked at the BBC for a couple of years. I
Hmm.
was an editor of a magazine.
Hmm.
And in all these places, right, the same kind of, even there, the bias towards quote unquote people like you
Yeah, yeah.
just
Every
continues.
job that I've been at.
Every job, yeah. Because if you look around you, sure, like, you have different names, and you have different, like, sometimes we have different religions or whatever. But if you really, like, just break us down individually, you will find out that most people in most offices are kind of very similar to each other. And there's a reason for that. Right, because the people who make these choices, right, whether to hire or whether to admit into a university or a college, they will.
There's a reason that a lot of offices or a lot of places
Hmm,
have like, okay, we only have people from Stephens, we only have people from IIT Bombay, or we
hmm,
prefer
hmm.
people from the IITs, we prefer people from whatever college you want to name it. And sometimes
Yeah,
this happens even when you don't know the other person. The moment you're like, acha, ye Stephen se hai, oh, ye IIT se hai. Acha, then
yeah,
you come join us. As opposed to the
yeah,
same scrutiny that you would apply to someone from a random college. Then you would interview that
yeah,
guy 10 times to see if this person's good or not. But the moment
yeah,
you see
yeah.
like a Stephens or an IIT or whatever, you're like, okay, this person already has crossed a certain barrier.
No, and also it allows the people to making these decisions. then hide their bias behind the curtain of merit, right?
Exactly.
Because you're saying that okay, someone who's graduated from IIT Bombay or St. Stephen's or St. Xavier's or whatever, that is the benchmark of quality,
Yeah.
let's say. Then you're saying that, but basically what you're doing is like, okay, I am letting other people be the gatekeepers for me,
Yeah.
and I'm just going to go by what they say,
Yeah. It's basically like
right?
a system. A system is in place for
Correct,
doing these
yeah.
things.
Wherein exactly, the real irony,
Basically, your
considering
meritocracy is also lazy.
meritocracy is no, and like, so I'm Catholic, right? And I've had access to Catholic schools and colleges growing up or whatever.
Yeah.
The irony of the situation, at least for like you look around and you see a lot of the really prestigious institutions and colleges around India, at least,
Yeah.
have a Saint Xavier's or a one of those type, and they're a lot of times run by the church,
Yeah.
right? Who are Jesuits or Franciscans or whatever. Like for instance, we are sitting in Bombay, and we have Saint Xavier's College, and we have Sophia College and Wilson College, and so on and so forth. And these are premier institutes. Or in
Yeah.
Delhi, you have Saint Stephen's. There's so many places. Presidency, Saint Xavier's in Calcutta. In Calcutta, Saint Xavier's in
Oh, I'm not sure I
XLRI,
get it. Go
XL.
on.
I was humble bragging, and also I like to say the word Xavier's. I didn't go there, so
Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
Ah.
But yeah, and those were colleges and institutions that were created basically to serve the needs of the poorer parts of society,
Yeah.
because they were meant, because that's what church institutions would do at that time, right? They would create these places where at least poor Christians could come and study.
Yeah.
The Jesuits are educationists, but obviously over time and over whatever, that system has also completely corrupted itself, wherein like getting into Saint Xavier's or Saint Stephen's or Xavier's has become so utterly difficult.
Yeah.
That is the gate also, right? And again, they will be like, no, but merit is what is our only thing that matters for us. But we all know that that's rubbish.
That is absolutely and utterly rubbish. I think.
But yeah, it's something I think our talking about the meritocracy, your I think the only thing we can take away from this conversation is this is a system that we have. Don't say it's fair when it's not.
It's not,
You know,
and it's
I
not like where
yeah,
I mean we don't know what solutions there are. I'm sure there are people with smarter
I'm
heads who have
sure.
better solutions. But I think
Yeah,
our goal here is for you to be aware that
yeah,
and it's not to say that your hard work is not hard work or that you don't deserve what you've got. It's to say that there is a reason you've gotten what you have.
yeah.
You worked hard, sure, but it's also been made easy by your caste, class, background, region, religion, and gender.
Of course it is. So don't, yeah, that's the only, I mean, surely there are better systems and surely we can be better people or whatever, but let's not even try to fool ourselves into believing that merit is something that matters. I think out of all the things that you could consider, if you're ever admitting someone to a college or if you're ever hiring someone into a job or into a program, I think merit is the thing that is the last
Last,
thing you should probably think about,
yeah,
right?
or at least the way it's
Because
considered now.
yeah, because we know now at this much later date that these exam things and all really don't matter at all.
Yeah, that is true.
Mm.
So I think we've made our point as always, Joel, as erudite as
As
you are.
always,
So
yeah.
guys,
In my mind's eye, all the uncles are just sitting only right now.
yeah, they're
They've
like, you
sat
were
up.
right. You were always right, guys.
You're always
So
right. Thank you for lecturing us for the past 40
yeah,
minutes or so.
yeah, I will
And
never be
thank you for
uncle
your
again.
yeoman service. I love that word,
Yeoman
yeoman.
service is best word.
Yeoman service.
Yeah, so
it's only
Joel.
it's used by two people. Okay, wait, I have to make this point.
Uh,
Yeoman service is made by two types of people. Okay,
uh,
the navy.
uh,
Okay, where the word originated, and old babu bureaucrats.
of course.
Because whenever you'll see, like, when you have a public gathering and there'll be a note of thanks,
Yeah,
they'll all a part of the note of thanks will always be for his/her yeoman service.
yeoman service.
Okay, I'm done now.
Right.
You
Now
can
that you have
you
learned
can
that
wrap this
new
up.
fact, guys, now that you've learned that new facts, As always, we'd like to say that, we're like a primer. We hope that you listen to this conversation, do your own research, learn your own things. And, next time, when you see an uncle, when you meet an uncle who says stuff like, but a meritocracy is the most important thing, everything else is a lie. You can look them straight. I mean, you first tell them to listen to our podcast.
Podcast?
Wow, that's such a fail ending.
Yeah, Tushar, first you said miles.
Yeah.
And then you said podcast.
It's the lockdown. It's getting to me. It's getting to me, buddy.
Are you either that or you're signaling something that you want to be in America?
Yeah, maybe. Actually, not right now. Fuck that. Not right now. No chance. No way, buddy.
Yeah, not right now.
Yeah. So basically, guys, you meet an uncle, you tell him to be like, sit, buddy. You listen to this podcast and you relax. And also, before we end, I just like to tell you guys, this is our 6th podcast. We would like you guys to review it on platforms where you can review it, and also share it with other people, so that more people can listen to us and enjoy themselves. That sounds wrong, but yeah.
Such high aspirations.
Listen
to us and enjoy themselves. It's good one.
So that's it from us, guys. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you so much.
नमस्ते, मैं हूँ सौरभ चंद्रा
और मैं प्रणय कुटस्थाने।
जब महफिल खत्म होते होते दरवाजे के बाहर पुलिया के ऊपर हम दुनिया भर की जटिल समस्याओं को सॉल्व करने में लग जाते हैं तो हो जाती है पुलियाबाजी।
अब आजकल के अपार्टमेंट वालों ने तो कभी पुलिया देखी नहीं होगी, पर आप फीलिंग तो समझ ही सकते हैं।
तो आइए शामिल हो जाइए हमारी पुलियाबाजी में, जहां प्रणय और मैं एक से एक इंटरेस्टिंग टॉपिक्स की तह तक जाएंगे।
आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस, बिटकॉइन, पाकिस्तान, मेडिकल एजुकेशन, करेंसी क्राइसिस, कभी हम दोनों के साथ और अक्सर स्पेशल एक्सपर्ट गेस्ट की कंपनी में।
सुनिए हमें IVM की वेबसाइट, ऐप या अपने फेवरेट पॉडकास्टिंग प्लेटफॉर्म पर हर दूसरे हफ्ते।
Hey, this is Shridaditya.
And I'm Amit Doshi.
And we host Shunya One.
It's a really fun podcast where we talk to some of the best entrepreneurs in the country.
Yes, talking about everything from their startup challenges to what they're building and all the future of technologies right here.
So catch us on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you listen to your podcast from.